Sapiophile. Noun. One who is attracted to intelligence. Join us, three fun-loving lovers of knowledge who are ready to dig into your favorite topics with our very own nerdy diatribes, words of wisdom, and takes on life as millennials. Welcome to the Sapiophiles.
So one of the coolest things that I got to do in graduate school actually was part of a psychological study that my friend was doing as part of her psychology degree. And what I was able to do was I was able to sit down in a room and she had us watch specific movie clips without music and then with music. And then we are meant to then answer a series of questions following those that would determine how we were feeling at the time. And I mean, a few clips were from Schindler's List. There was a clip
Very
from
dramatic music.
Star Wars. Yeah, there was a clip from E.T. and then Gone with the Wind. So the questions that they posed to us after listening to the music and watching the scene and then watching the scene without music at all were just basic questions like, how are you feeling right now? Would you pick a food? Like very strange questions, but seemingly strange, I should say. But really what they were having us do was they were trying to determine how music was impacting or regulating the rest of how we were feeling about simple questions. And obviously watching a scene from Schindler's List without the music is still horrific, but then you add the music and it gnaws at your very being, your very soul. So I just remember that being such a cool study and that their findings were completely conclusive that music every single time just changed completely how a person felt about the scene. And it made me think a lot about old movies and like before everything, like all the sound mixing that we have now. I just thought it was a interesting segue into how much the three of us love music and how much we know that music plays a role in our lives, but also in the lives of the greater community in the world.
Yeah, music is huge, especially in terms of when you're watching films or as a background to any type of feature. Like even if you notice when you go to like a play, even if it's not a musical, oftentimes they still have music in the background because it does a lot to affect your mood. And music actually scientifically does affect your mood. This actually segues me a little bit into some of what I wanted to say about the science of music. Music really scientifically is pretty simple. It's just vibrations through the air and how your brain picks up on them. But it's really fascinating because it actually affects your movement cortex, your motor planning cortex, attention, auditory cortex, and all of the other brain regions. It's like a full brain activity. It's right and left brain. And it's one of the only things that's right and left brain. It's mathematical and pattern, and it's also artistic and emotional. So I think that's really, really interesting. That's why it's so powerful to be used in terms of therapy and in terms of setting moods for different stories. I wanted to shout out a book I read actually called This Is Your Brain on Music. Really interesting, really scientific, explains what your brain goes through when it listens to music, and it's by Daniel J. Levitin. Good book. Definitely recommend it. But yeah, I think that that's such a huge thing, and there isn't anybody who really can say they've never been emotionally affected by music. Even if you don't think you're a music person, even if you're not somebody who knows anything about chord structure or about playing an instrument or reading music, you've definitely heard music at some point in your life that has caused emotion, even if you didn't realize it, even if it was just in the background of a movie you like. I guarantee it changed your experience with that movie, as Kay was saying. Music can actually release dopamine and trigger reactions in your brain to make you have a stronger emotional reaction. Why does it make people feel certain? It's actually such a simple thing, and it has to do with the notes that are in the chords of what you're listening to. And the only difference is the little note in the middle. So if I want something to sound happy, I would play it as a major chord. So a major chord sounds like this. So that's a major chord. Now, if I want it to sound sad, all I have to do is take that middle note and make it a little lower. So a major chord was this. And a minor chord is... All I did was take this, and now it's a sad sounding chord.
Of course, I'm pitch matching you right now. I'm like,
You can sing along. Okay. If I wanted to sound scary, I could make it a diminished chord, and all I had to do was lower the third note that I'm playing, which is the fifth of the chord. That was the root note. I'm playing the lowered third, and now instead of playing this, I'd play this. So, and now if I build a melody off of that chord, it's a scary song. So those are the main chord patterns. And all music is built out of some type of chord structure. Those are the main ones. And if you notice, when you change it just by that tiny little bit, it changes the entire mood of the piece. Have either of you ever heard the major to minor adaptations of songs? They were on YouTube for a while. Like, the one that sticks out to me is...
Oh, it's creepy.
All I Want for Christmas Is You.
Yeah.
Okay, so All I Want for Christmas Is You is like
that, I've heard
a
that
happy,
one.
perky Christmas song. When you make it minor, it changes the entire intent of the song. Because you keep the words, and the words are still saying, like, I want you. The words are the same. But when you take it from, like, this happy feel to this... Now saying, all I want for Christmas is you...
Creepy.
Sounds stalkery.
Creepy.
So it makes a happy, perky song a stalker anthem by changing that one little note. And I think that's what's so cool about chord structure. So those are the three main ones. I've been playing C, so this is a C major, but I could also do a D major or E. So I can go all the way up and down the scale and play major chords. If you're listening to something that sounds happy, it's probably one of those. If you're listening to something that sounds sad, it's probably built off of one of these minor chords. And if you're listening to something scary, it's probably built off of one of those diminished chords. One other thing that I think is really cool about that is that if you keep the notes but change the genre of music, you can also change the feel of it. Two musical groups that do a great job with this are East Village Opera Company, which take classical music and play it as rock songs to change the feel entirely, and also Postmodern Jukebox that takes all different current songs and plays them in like old-timey feels. You know, kind of like vaudeville numbers or like 60s. It plays them in previous time periods. So that's really cool too.
Like as Chelsea said, happy tends to be major, sad tends to be minor, and scary tends to be, you said, diminished, correct?
Yes.
One of my favorite things in film is when there's a juxtaposition of one scene that has one emotional, and the music is the complete opposite.
Yes.
I think that is just cool. I can't think of, I'm trying to think of something right now, and here's one. When in the TV show Veronica Mars, if you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. There's a scene where there's a scene that's set at a Christmas party where someone has just discovered that, you know, one of the other characters is a cheating hofo show. And and while the character is being attacked and is in danger, there's a choir singing like Carol the Bells in the background, which like just so perfect because it's two completely different feelings all in one. You're like, whoa. So I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, but.
So I definitely agree. The juxtaposition is very interesting. All right, I'm going to get really, really geeky with music for a second. Okay.
We like it when you get geeky.
Okay. So most music is in one of those three types of key signatures that I gave you before. However, did you ever notice that certain songs don't seem to fit the pattern, or like no matter who does a cover of it, it has that weird feel to it that you can't quite place?
Explain yourself.
Yeah.
So, the Beatles wrote in something called modal music. It wasn't in the regular key signatures at all. So, modal music is the kind of music that only uses the white keys, and it's named after like old-time like church modes, but it only uses the white keys. So what I was playing before, that's a C major scale that only uses the white keys. But if I only use the white keys and start on D, and I build it off of only the white keys there, and that's your base of notes, or it's not quite right. It's almost major or it's almost minor, but it's not. Some songs that have these kind of sounds in them are songs like Eleanor Rigby.
Yeah.
It's kind of minor, but it's not. Because, like, the verse part sounds minor. The whole, like, Eleanor Rigby. But then you get to the chorus, and there's that little major piece. Where do they all belong? So it has that little bit like of, that's not quite minor. Eleanor Rigby is actually written in something called Dorian mode, which is one of these modes. So is Scarborough Fair by Simon and Garfunkel. It sounds minor. They're like, are you going to Scarborough Fair? And then when it starts talking about the spices, that whole part about the spices, it's almost major. It's like, parsley, sage. But it's not quite minor and it's not quite major.
I love how you're singing for us. Can I just say that?
Well, thank
You're amazing.
you. I'm trying to explain it, so I have to, like, give you some kind of auditory explanation.
Yeah, and I'm quite enjoying it, I must say.
The Simpsons theme song is Lydian mode, because it has that augmented fourth, the Simpsons. It has...
Also, Maria.
It's a tritone. And the tritone... Maria, I just met a girl named Maria. Okay, now I'm just singing. Love West Side Story. That tritone comes out of Lydian mode, where there's that augmented fourth. The fourth is a tiny bit higher. So the fourth note, so it would be, instead of that, it would be a little bit higher on the fourth note. So those are some examples. Also, Moon Dance is an example. It's a marvelous night for a moon dance. That one?
I haven't heard that song in a long time. That's a good one.
They wrote in these kind of modes in the 60s more. It's not as popular any longer, but it's so interesting because it just makes your ear go like, huh. And I think that's why some of these groups, the Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, all these groups that wrote like this, why they're so timeless. All that they did to do that was build it off of notes that come out of starting on a different note. So if I started... So that's kind of like a little bit off. And that has an almost minor feel. I can start at any note. So it's kind of
like
minor.
that one.
Yeah, that's Mixolydian mode.
You started on a G and made the F natural?
I started on a G and played only the white keys up to the next G.
Right, so you took away the F sharp.
I did.
You made it natural. Okay.
So if I started on that was the G scale again, it's almost major, right? G. But it has that seventh chord in it. So it has that F in it, so it has like all these other notes in it that don't necessarily go with that chord structure initially. So it just makes it very interesting. So that's my little music theory of the day. Also, Greensleeves is one of them too. It's like, it's not quite minor.
I oftentimes, as a child, would mess up singing Greensleeves because I tried to make it major. Like, I would go like, do 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 do, instead of like to the other note, like do 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 do. Like, it's so slight. But I remember choir teachers going, Kayla. I'm like, sorry.
Because your ear is trained to hear major, minor chords. Your ear is not really used to modal chords. So a lot of people do make it into that. So now that I've gotten all nerdy with music, in the amount of music that I've written, which, is a small amount, I always write the lyrics first. And then figure out what was the emotion I was trying to get across in the lyrics, and then develop a chord progression around that emotion. So I always do the lyrics first. But I think amazing songs don't need the lyrics to have their effect. So some of like the most powerful pieces of music don't have lyrics, and they still have that huge emotional effect. And even those that do, not just because you know the lyrics, it's because it evokes a certain feeling. And that's what makes the music so good.
I would agree with you. And I think that in the same way that you say that you write your lyrics first and then you write the music based off the lyrics, I think that obviously it's slightly different, and I don't know what it means to be a composer of a huge score for a film, but I imagine they approach the composer and say, this is the type of film you're composing for. Can you come up with something? And so the same way as you look at your lyrics, they think of the story.
Yeah.
So they're writing thematically and story-wise as opposed to just through words, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And it's amazing that they can use so many different chord structures and instrumentations.
My senior year of college, we had, for my capstone project, we did a project on adaptations. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I did was I adapted instrumental music that I listened to and loved, and I wrote my own poetry to the instrumental music in the same rhythms. So all the rhythmic patterns of the words had to match the rhythmic patterns of the music, as well as also had to match thematically. And I thought that was really cool. It was like doing what a composer would be doing in reverse.
Yeah.
And it reminded me when you said lyrics and then writing the songs, and I was like, oh, I did the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. But I remember thinking it was so much fun trying to dissect music like that and figure out and create a theme,
Yeah.
So
what do you guys think about emotional music that you've heard, or like what types of music help move you?
I'm a very emotional person to begin with.
Yeah.
And I would say that when I'm watching a movie, for example, and they have, I don't know, if something that's trying to elicit sadness or whatever, like that really like brings tears to my eyes, makes me want to cry. So when I hear like certain types of instruments or tones, I get worked up, so to speak. But I agree with how music really can set the tone and how it can make you feel a certain way or not feel a certain way. It's very interesting. And you're 100% correct when you say it affects everybody in some way or another. And I don't know if I think we notice it more. And I'd be curious to ask someone who maybe isn't musical what they think. Because I don't know if everybody realizes just how much music plays a role in their life.
Definitely.
Even if, they don't play an instrument, they don't sing. I would argue it still affects them on a daily basis.
Well, we'd love to hear from non-musical people.
If you have no musical training and you listen to our podcast and you have something that you'd like to add, please message us, and we're happy to give you a shout out in the next episode, just if you have anything to say or add that we can't speak to because we are musically inclined.
I don't know about the two of you, but I can't imagine going through my life not being able to see how music affects me, just because it's played such an important role for so long.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it's also more that we're looking at it from a point of view of how is it causing emotion, not just that it is, but because we have a background in how the music is put together and chord structure and what sort of instrumentations create different emotions. We're looking at it from a perspective of how instead of just that it does.
I started playing saxophone when I was in 4th grade. I've been singing all my life in church choir first, then in high schools and college, and I played piano for a long time. That said, besides the piano lesson and, of course, whatever you learn in high school band and high school choir, I was never, I want to say, classically trained until college. A lot of my hardcore music theory I learned at Marist. In that sense, I do find myself sometimes reacting to music and then realizing why, more than the other way around. I'm not sure if you guys feel the same way, but like I'll sometimes be like, oh my gosh, I love this progression of chords in the Braveheart score, and I wonder what that is, and I have to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't just come to me. Like, the theory doesn't just come to me. I just know. Like, I just feel it. Do you guys feel the same way? I'm not sure. I know that Chelsea has a little more theory than I do, or a lot more theory than I do.
I don't think I ever took a music theory class. I've always just strictly done band, and when I was younger, I used to be in the chorus. So for me, I think it's different because I can't listen to something and then write it down, and know like what it is. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's definitely like the emotion that affects me first. I mean, could I figure out what we're playing? Yes. I mean, I can play by ear sometimes. I'm not trained at all in theory, which looking back now, I kind of wish I had taken some of those classes, but I don't know why. I never thought to do that when I was in school.
Yeah. I did take theory through high school and college in several different types of courses. And I feel like it was very interesting just in the explaining why. I agree with you guys that you feel the emotion of it first, and then you're like, oh, that's because they're writing in this key signature with this chord structure, and that's why it does that. And it's really interesting when you can figure it out, but it doesn't ruin the magic. It just explains it, which is kind of cool. Like, you still do feel those emotions.
I can tell some major or minor or flat or sharp or in key, but I cannot do what you do, where you're like, oh yeah, that's because it's in that structure. Like you've even like sung with me, and I'll be like, I know this harmony, and you're like, oh, I'm like, I don't know, it sounds good. Like, I don't know what I'm actually doing.
But you have an amazing ear for harmony, even if you're not sure why you're singing those notes. You are amazing at making up harmony. Like, we can put the radio on, and you'll just be making up a harmony line, and it's beautiful. Even if you're not sure what exactly you're doing in terms of chord structure, you do such a beautiful job with that. Like, imagining Jurassic Park without any music, I feel like it would almost be like a silly theme park. It would be like, here's a big dinosaur, bump, 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 bump. But then, like, when you have that big sweeping, like, you know, the Jurassic Park music, that whole, like, ba-na-na-na-na, that whole big thing, it becomes this, like, huge, amazing, emotional thing. And that's a John Williams shout out right there. John Williams is, like, the king of music scores and just beautifully written things. And one of the things I noticed about John Williams is that his music is so ingrained in people's minds as part of that story that you don't even need the story. You can hear those few notes and you go right back into the scene. And that's with a lot of his music. He's one of my favorite composers. Other music thoughts. What are some of your favorite kinds of music, or like genres of music, or music that sticks with you as being strong and emotional, and musical groups that you like? You know, anything.
Well, I mean, there are certain songs, like if I'm feeling sad or whatever, I'll listen to them, and then maybe it'll make me feel a little bit better or make me start to cry. But after a while, I listen to these over and over, and then I get numb to it. So then it doesn't work anymore.
So I guess it depends on what you're listening to.
Yeah, or how often. Mm-hmm. When I'm happy, I tend to listen to like upbeat music. When I'm sad, I tend to go like a slower melody, maybe often with like, you know, flutes or some type of like classical, like pipes or whatever.
Yeah.
If like I really feel like crying, then I'll like listen to like Irish Celtic music or something like that. Because I can't like listen to bagpipes or whatever without like getting all music. I can't listen to that without getting all wispy. And maybe it's just because like I am a flute player, so I really have a deep appreciation for flutes, and they just really touch me. Or even like violin music sometimes.
Violin, very emotional.
And then also the flip side too, like if we're talking about Celtic music, you listen to the fiddle in a you know, an upbeat Celtic band, like it, you know, there's two sides. Mm-hmm. So it depends. But in terms of genres of music, I would say I have a very diverse taste, and I like just about everything, except I'm not really fond of rap music or like that, because I want something I can understand the lyrics to or sing along, and that for me is just kind of headache music.
Yeah, I agree with that is the genre that I have the hardest time getting into. I appreciate it for its poetic value at times, but I think for me, you know, I come from the music theory kind of background. I want my music to have chords, to have melody, to have harmony, to have emotion that's built out of that, not just out of the words. The words are great, but I feel like it needs both to be truly music. That said, there are some great rappers. So, you know, I don't want to discount an entire genre. Poetically, a lot of them are very talented. I just feel like it's a different thing. I feel like it's like spoken word poem to a rhythm.
But I feel like a lot of times, like the lyrics, and I don't want to make a generalization, so but I'm just saying, of the ones I've heard, they're very, I don't know, they drop the F-bomb too much for my liking. It's like, it bothers me because it's like, you're writing a song, you can't think of a better word to put there. Like, come on.
Well, I think it depends on what emotion they're trying to get across. Sometimes I agree with you, and I think it's just too much. It's being used like a comma. Sometimes I think it's there for a purpose, but it all depends.
If it's there for like emphasis or something, yeah, then fine, totally, of course, 100%. I have no problem with it. But if it's every other word, I'm sorry. It's just, then it's crap. I'm sorry. I don't like that.
And I think that does happen in rap music more than other music, but I don't know that it's necessarily indicative of the entire genre. I think it's just kind of a trend. I have to say, I guess that this is sort of cheating in terms of rap, but it is rap. It's technically rap. But, like, Hamilton is amazing. And Hamilton is like, but it's rap. Technically, it's rap music. Like, about 85% of what's in Hamilton is rap. There are some sung songs, but it's rap. But they do such a great job lyrically and with the underscoring, with the instrumentation and melodically, and mixing it with sung lyrics and mixing it with other styles of hip hop. And I love Lin-Manuel Miranda. He's just powerful. And I know that there are rap artists out there who can and do write that way. Unfortunately, they're overshadowed often by the other type of rap that you're talking about. But I don't know. I guess I don't like to generalize and say that it's an entire genre. But I agree with you that it's a substantial portion.
And I wanted to, for listeners, I was not saying that. So if you're a big fan of rap music, I was not trying to offend. But if we're still talking about other types of music that we don't really like, I'm not a big fan of what I will call like techno music. That's just like that big pulsing. Like, I get a headache from that.
Oh.
Just like that beat. I'm not talking about anything that has lyrics with it, but just, I don't know.
Yeah, the instrumentation. Not a fan of that kind of instrumentation.
Yeah.
It's cool. Kay, I see you writing on your notepad.
I was writing down songs that are in a certain genre that sounds like powerful and strong and angry, but are actually very hopeful, because those are the kind of songs that I listen to when I'm angry or sad. I tend to go to those. So, like, anybody that knows me personally knows I'm an odd duck. Like, I'm a mix between, like, a small town country sorority girl who likes to go to hard rock concerts like Skillet. So, like, it's very strange. Like, I don't really fit a category. And I think some of that is just my taste, and some of that is I'm competitive, and some of that is I grew up with brothers. But my brother Cameron introduced me to, like, this genre of, like, rock, like, or, like, stuff that you'd hear on Octane, if anybody is a serious radio fan. But, like, Here's to the Heartache and I'll Be Okay by Nothing More, The Light by Disturbed, Waking Lions by Pop Evil, Bulletproof by Godsmack, I Will Not Bow, Breaking Benjamin, and then I Am the Fire and Here's to Us, Hailstorm. Like, those songs.
They're great.
And I'll give them to our lovely editor of this fine podcast so that he can list them out for you, because you really need to listen to them. But if you're
like our book list, you're gonna get a playlist.
Yeah.
We're just so great to you.
This is the Kayla Provost basic playlist of songs that are like really hard rock, but they're inspirational. And it's basically like, if you want to rise up like a phoenix, you listen to these songs, because they're angry enough that you can get out all your stuff like catharsis, but they're hopeful enough that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. So
love that.
Yeah,
you introduced me to some of those, and some of them I agree, they're so powerful.
Yeah, but like just all those songs, I feel like that's, I want to say, if I had to like portion my listening into quarters, that's like a solid quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have like my happy music, which tends to be a mix of classic rock and country music.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my, like, I'm gonna sing to all the things and actually sing for real, and that's like anything from like church music all the way to Broadway shows,
mm-hmm.
because like I just love that.
Yeah.
And country music you can also use as like sad songs too, like if you're in a bad mood or an upset mood, because a lot of country is very like wistful and sad.
Depends on the kind of country you're listening to. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I'd like to I'd like to, if any listeners want to, I guess, give their input, I'd like to, I guess, read or hear about whether you use music more often as a means of, like, if you'll listen to sad music when you're sad, or if you tend to be that person that recognizes they're sad and then listens to something that'll make them less sad instead. Because I feel like I'm half and half, but I feel like some people are a little more than one or the other. But it's just interesting.
For me, it depends.
Like, if you're using it as, like, therapy or catharsis.
Right.
What are you doing?
For me, it depends on the nature and severity of the sadness. One of my all-time favorite, like, get me out of a bad mood soundtracks is actually Avenue Q.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, you know me so well. Yeah, so Avenue Q, if you're not familiar with it, it is a show. It actually won the Tony for Best Musical a long time ago, maybe 2005, I want to say. I could be wrong about the year, but it was sometime around then. It is basically adulting Sesame Street. So it is. It's the opening number is called "What Do You Do with a BA in English?" So it's like, hey, I got out of college. Now what? Now I have to be an adult? So it's about all these people in their 20s and early 30s who are trying to just figure out what to do with their lives. And it does not make light of the hardships in life, but it does it in an upbeat way. So the whole opening after that whole "What do you do with a BA in English?" is this upbeat song called "It Sucks to Be Me." And it doesn't make light of the issues you have in life, but it's like, it's okay. We're gonna power through it together. We got this. So it's like, it sucks to be me. It sucks to be me. It's just like so cheerful, but it's not cheerful in a way that it's like everything is hunky dory and happy in the world. And you should just, like, you're being silly for being upset. It validates the hardships and turns them around. And that's one of my favorite, like, get out of a bad mood soundtracks. Other things that I listen to, I also agree with you about the country. I think country is oftentimes a storytelling genre. So
definitely.
There's a lot of powerful country music that can either put you in a good mood or help you, like, cry out a bad. So I definitely agree with that. Hello, Linny. Hi.
Hi.
Linny, do you want to say anything about music? We're talking about music tonight for the podcast. So, like, music and, like, how it makes emotions. Yeah.
Music. Okay. My entire life, I have loved to sing in class. Even though my range is only like maybe 10, 12 notes, I teach the kids musical songs, and we start our day out right. So we learn Broadway, we learn patriotic, we learn fun little camp songs. I just think music just helps the students have a good day. There's my little quick thing on
it. It does. And we were just talking about how music helps people get into a better mood or change their mindset. So I think that fits right along with it. Also, it's catchy, so it helps them remember things. So if you put your information that you need them to study to lyrics, to put the lyrics to, like, a melody, it can help them remember it. I do that sometimes, but, you know.
Yeah.
That's me.
And I honestly, like, I can attest to that because I remember some of the camp songs that Linny taught me more than I remember some of, like, the dates I learned in AP history.
Oh, totally.
So, like,
actually,
like, I can rock an Austrian yodeling.
Thanks for including me. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Linny. Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
So that was Kayla's aunt, for all you people wondering who that was. And she's a lovely
person. It's my Aunt Lynn.
She's great.
My Aunt Lynn is awesome. She's a teacher. She's been teaching in my hometown for as long as I can remember, and she just is such an incredible educator, and she just loves her job, and she's so passionate about it, and she does. So, like, she was one of the first people that taught me, like, songs from The King and I, from Sound of Music, from Guys and Dolls. She just used to sing them all the time when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And that's another thing. It's like an earworm. It sticks in your brain, and it is really useful for teaching even things that have nothing to do with the music, for teaching information. Actually, my first grade teacher, who, if you're listening to this, hi, you were Mrs. Jabardo. I believe you're Mrs. Armstrong now. But yeah, so hi, if you happen to listen to this. I remember everything from first grade because she came in every day with a guitar. She sang so many different things. We had musical like lessons in terms of learning new pieces of information, but we also sang like old school songs that we all kind of jammed out to. I remember she played Feeling Groovy, which is, old school 70s, like ba-da-da-da-da-da, feeling groovy. But it sticks in my head. Like, I'm 30 years old, and I remember what I was singing when I was 6. So
That's fun.
It does stick with you. Music stays in your brain. It creates auditory pathways.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to all the music teachers we've ever had. I mean, for me, it was Mr. Whittam, Mr. Page, and Mrs. McGarry. Mrs. McGarry is still my friend to this day, but she just gave me so much background and allowed me to grow enough to really become a musician at the college level. And then, like you said, Chelsea, like I remember Mr. Whittam. He was my young elementary school, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade teacher. Mm-hmm. And he'd have us do like these folk songs and almost do storytelling with drums and bells and everything, so that we had like sound effects. And I remember like still being like afraid of like hearing like certain folk stories, because I remember how much the music and having the drums in the background made me feel like it was real.
Yeah.
Like you were actually in a jungle or actually on a hunt. So yeah.
Yeah, if we're shouting out music teachers, okay. Linda Clark was my high school choir director, who was amazing at what she did, had so many people that became such strong musicians because of her. Salome Maceres was my voice teacher through middle school and high school. And then Marist people, we could do Marist people.
Oh, yeah.
So Sarah Williams, Art Himmelberger, Suzanne Clune. Who else?
Yeah.
Those are the main ones, right?
Chelsea Chris, our freshman year.
Christian.
He was awesome.
He was great. Yeah, I'm sad he was only with us for 1 year. Christian, yes. So, Marist Music Department, for those of you who are still there, we love Marist Music, and thank you to everybody. Art Himmelberger is he is Marist Music. Icon. Yeah, he is an icon.
Honestly, he's probably one of the main reasons I chose Marist, because I met him at Accepted Students Day. I heard the band play. He came over to me. We started talking, and I was like, oh, I'm sold. And while we're also giving out shout-outs, I want to give a shout-out to my high school band director, Thomas Barna. He was, again, very instrumental in why I chose my high school. He has actually since passed away, but he was one of my favorite teachers, and I will never forget him. He was he was a friend, and he was really excellent at what he did, and he made it fun.
Well, shout outs and thank yous to all of our music teachers. And, I've done a lot of musicals, so all of the musical directors I've ever had, or that I've worked with as a director or as a choreographer, anybody who I've ever been involved in musical theater with that was on the music side, thank you, because that was such a huge part of life, too. All right, so to wrap up, what is a song that you think everybody should listen to? Could be a well-known song or could be a lesser-known song that perhaps our listeners have not heard of. A song that is an instrumental song and a song that is a song with lyrics that everybody should check out.
A soundtrack in general that people should check out is the soundtrack to Cold Mountain. Both the score and the songs. Alison Krauss is featured, Jack White. It's just an incredible blend of beautiful instrumental music, as well as folk music, and then some sacred harp in there too, which is just such a cool style of music if you've never heard it sung before. It's all emotion, doesn't really pay attention to dynamics, which for those that may not be as musical, dynamic levels are how loud or quiet the piece is, and how that changes throughout the piece of music. It's just an incredible CD. If you can get the CD or like even listen to the entire CD on YouTube, I know it's there. I'd highly recommend that for a bunch of different genres of music all in one particular score and soundtrack. The song that I can't stop listening to right now is called Waking Lions by Pop Evil. Again, it's one of those octane songs. It's about deciding that you're not going to let fear run your life, and instead you're going to wake up the lions inside your soul, and they're going to power you towards something better. Definitely the thing that I am playing nonstop probably for the past 2 weeks, which is a long run for me playing something nonstop. And then a song in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 by, and I apologize if I butcher the pronunciation of his name, but Alexandre Desplat. And he writes a song called Ron Leaves, which is written during the scene when Ron is leaving the group because he gets upset in Harry Potter. And the song, just listening to it on its own, it tells a story. And it's probably one of the best songs ever that I've heard, that you can picture a scene completely and you know exactly what's happening. And even if you didn't know the storyline, your mind would still go to exactly that type of a story or a theme. So definitely look that up too.
I have quite a few, and I'm probably going to cheat and do more than just one or two.
Oh, you mean like I did?
Yeah. Instrumental. Let's do that first. There's so much beautiful instrumental music. Any classic movie scores are just great. One that I would suggest checking out if you have not seen the movie or heard the score is the score from August Rush.
Yes.
August Rush.
Oh, that was a good...
Yeah, it's all about a young musician who is trying to find his parents, who are both musicians, and how the music pulls them back together. Beautiful story. You should totally see the movie, too. The soundtrack is just beautiful and blends different genres because the boy's mother is a classical cellist and the boy's father is a professional musician in like a rock. So it blends their styles. In terms of music that is like lyrics, I'm trying to think of less known ones. There's actually a song by Idina Menzel. It's not from a musical. It's from her solo album called Brave. And it's such a powerful, like, pull you through those emotional time songs. Her lyrics are beautiful. Also, another one from that album is a song called Gorgeous, which is about a similar one about like standing with your friends and pulling through. So I think those are great songs. Other ones that I think people should check out. I'm a big theater person, obviously, so, you know, some of the more recent soundtracks. One of my favorite musical theater composers is Frank Wildhorn, who wrote the music to Jekyll and Hyde and Scarlet Pimpernel, Bonnie and Clyde. He's one of my favorites. I actually met him once a while ago, probably like 6-7 years ago, which was cool. All of his music, I think, is just so beautifully written harmonically and the way that it's put together to convey the emotions. So, I mean, Jekyll and Hyde as a whole, Scarlet Pimpernel as a whole are just beautiful. Also, Bonnie and Clyde is one of his lesser-known musicals, but there's certain, like, standalone songs from that I think are great. There's one called You Love Who You Love, which kind of just sounds like a country song, but it's great. And there's another called Raise a Little Hell, which is very strong and powerful and starts dark and picks up as the story progresses. So I know I totally cheated. I did like a whole composer and I did songs and I did soundtrack. So that's a lot of music, but we will make you a lovely music list. So, all right, Marissa, you're up.
I don't know if everyone will know this, but I like the soundtrack to Downton Abbey. I don't know if you guys ever listened to that.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I have part of it on my iTunes playlist. I've been into like 70s and like 80s music. So one of my favorite groups is Fleetwood Mac. I love Stevie Nicks. So her song Landslide
Beautiful.
is just like timeless. Everybody covers it. Sometimes people do good jobs. Like I think the Dixie Chicks, they have an amazing cover of it. I like stuff by Billy Joel. Like anything that he does is usually pretty timeless too. And I don't know, I've found like recently I like music better from like back in the day than from like more current stuff, like classic rock, like 90s, 80s, you know, stuff you can dance to, actually sing to. I do like some stuff from now. Like I love Pink. She has a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
Adele is good too.
She is.
Well, very good actually.
Adele's great.
I'm always willing and eager to listen to new people, new things, new music. So listeners, if you have any suggestions, I will gladly take a listen.
Yeah, that goes for me too. Anybody that has good workout or running songs, I'm running a half marathon in June and I can use all the help I can get. And that includes musically.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, songs are great for that. They're great for motivation. They're great for emotion release. So many beautiful songs. When you mentioned the Dixie Chicks, it also reminded me of a couple of their other songs. one that sticks out that is one of my like angry, sad playlist songs is their song called Not Ready to Make Nice.
Oh, yes. Love that one.
It's just so powerful and strong. Love that. Any song where they're just like, you know, going for what they believe is great.
Yeah, thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Listen to some great music. Tell us about what you're listening to.
Yeah, ask us questions, or if there's a topic you guys really want us to start talking about and nerd out to, let us know.
We love new topics. Thanks, guys. Happy listening.
Happy listening.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for joining us again this week for our music edition of the Sapio Files. If we mentioned a piece of music that you would like to listen to, you can find all of those songs and more of our favorites on our YouTube playlist. The link is in the show notes below. If you would like to join the conversation, suggest a topic, or tell us a little about you, you can email us at sapiofilespodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at The Sapio Files. And always remember to leave us a comment and rate us wherever you're listening to this podcast. Have a great week, happy listening, and stay curious.